Are you tired of waking up at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, calculating whether your money will last longer than you will? Have you been praying the same desperate prayer for so long that your knees have worn grooves into the floor beside your bed? Do you lie there in the dark, wondering if God has put you on financial hold while the rest of the world gets approved? Stop, right there. Chosen one, I need you to lean in close, because what I'm about to tell you didn't come from my mind. It came from the throne room itself. 3 nights ago, heaven interrupted my sleep with a message so urgent, so specific, so explosively hope-filled that I knew it was meant for you. God told me to tell you this today. He is funding your life now, not someday. Not when you're more worthy. Not when you finally get it all together. Now. Listen to me carefully. While you've been checking your bank balance with trembling hands, while you've been avoiding the mailbox because you can't face another bill, while you've been choosing between groceries and medication, heaven has been processing a transaction that's about to shatter every limitation you've accepted as permanent. If your spirit is already stirring, if something in your chest just shifted when you heard those words, type "I receive" in the comments right now. Let heaven witness your faith. Let the angels take note, because what happens next requires your agreement. You see, you've been standing on a bridge made of fog. You can't see the other side. You can't see what's beneath you. You can't even see the next step. But God has already built the road. Every plank is in place. Every support beam is secured. The only thing missing is your willingness to take the step. Here's the question that's going to haunt you until we get to the revelation in section form. What if the money you've been waiting for has already been released, but you haven't recognized how? Stay with me, because the moment you hear what I'm about to reveal later, something ancient and suffocating is going to break off your shoulders, a weight you didn't even know had a name. Before we go deeper, I want to pause and honor every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and plant that seed of faith. But right now, I need you to hear me. I'm talking to the grandmother who's terrified of becoming a burden. I'm talking to the grandfather who worked 43 years and still wonders if it was enough. I'm talking to every senior citizen who lies awake wondering, will I outlive my savings? Can I afford to stay in my home? What happens when the medical bills come? The sting of inflation, the fear of the mailbox, the shame of needing help, the exhaustion of feeling forgotten after you've given your best years. God saw it all. And heaven just reviewed your account and God said, release the funds. Why does it feel like your breakthrough is always 1 month away, 1 year away, 1 miracle away, but never today? Why have you watched people half your age waltz into blessings while you've been faithful for 7 decades and still scraping by? Why does every door you approach seem to have an invisible lock that only works against you? Let me tell you something that's going to shatter the lies you've been carrying. What you've been calling bad luck was actually spiritual warfare. What you've been blaming on yourself was actually an invisible war being waged over your provision. And the enemy, he didn't attack you because you were weak. He attacked you because he saw the funding heaven had already approved. Listen carefully, chosen one. There is a treasury department in heaven. Not a metaphor, an actual, functioning, divinely orchestrated system where your blessings have been processed, signed, sealed, and sent. But between heaven's release and your reception, there's a battlefield. And on that battlefield, demonic forces have been working overtime to intercept what God already authorized. You thought the delay was rejection, but it was redirection. You thought God was ignoring your cries, but He was actually protecting you from receiving something before you were ready to steward it. Think about it. What would have happened if you'd gotten that inheritance at 40 when you were still broken inside? What if that financial breakthrough had come at 50 before you learned to trust God as your source? The delay wasn't punishment. It was divine security. This is why Exodus 6 shakes me to my core. Every single morning, God rained manna from heaven for the Israelites. Not once a month. Not when they performed well enough. Every single morning. Exodus 4 says, "Then the Lord said to Moses, I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day." Do you hear that? Each day? Your provision was never supposed to be a one-time event. It was designed to be daily, consistent, supernatural supply. But the enemy has been whispering lies to you for so long that you've started believing God's system is broken. It's not broken, beloved. It's being blocked. Here's what's really been happening while you've been worrying. Your blessings are like direct deposits that have been sent but are waiting for verification. The money left heaven's account. The approval was signed by the Almighty Himself. But there's a spiritual verification process, and the enemy has been flooding that system with fear, doubt, and distraction, trying to get you to cancel the transaction before it clears. Every time you said, "I'll never have enough," you delayed the deposit. Every time you agreed with lack instead of abundance, you put a hold on the funds. Every time you looked at your situation instead of God's promise, you extended the processing time. Not because God is petty, but because faith is the currency of heaven. And the enemy knows that if he can get you to stop believing, he can freeze what's already been released. But here's what hell didn't count on. You're still here, you're still praying. You're still believing even when your bank account mocks you. That stubborn, ridiculous, illogical faith you've been carrying, that just verified the deposit. You thought God was silent, but He was strategic. While you were crying out for rent money, He was orchestrating a meeting 3 states away with someone who's about to offer you an opportunity. While you were panicking about medical bills, He was moving on the heart of a family member you haven't heard from in years. While you were staring at an empty mailbox, He was preparing a check you didn't even know existed. The closed doors weren't rejection, they were redirection away from what would have kept you small. That job you didn't get, it would have killed your spirit before it paid your bills. That investment that fell through, it would have bankrupted you within 2 years. That relationship that ended, it would have drained you dry. God wasn't withholding from you. He was protecting you for something bigger. If this describes what you've been living through, if you've felt the invisible war, the unexplained delays, the doors that slam for no reason, whisper, yes, where you are right now. Let your spirit confirm what your mind is just beginning to understand. The battle was never about you being unworthy. It was about the enemy trying to stop what God already approved. In just a few minutes, I'm going to show you the sign that proves God has unlocked your funding. I'm going to reveal the specific marker that confirms the verification is complete and the deposit is about to hit your account. But first, you need to understand something that will change how you pray, how you speak, and how you walk from this moment forward. The delay wasn't denial, it was divine security, and the war you've been fighting, you just won. But the question burning in heaven right now is this. Now that the enemy's blockade is broken, are you ready to receive what's been waiting for you all along? You know what keeps me up at night? It's not the headlines or the chows in the world. It's the faces I see, faces just like yours. Faces of people who've worked their entire lives, given everything they had, sacrificed their dreams for their children, and now sit alone in quiet living rooms wondering if they made a terrible mistake trusting God with their finances. Let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How many bills are sitting on your kitchen table right now that you've been avoiding? How many envelopes have you left unopened because you already know what's inside? Another demand, another deadline, Another reminder that the money isn't stretching like it used to. Maybe it's the medical bills from that hospital stay last year. The ones that keep coming in waves, each one with a number so high it makes your hands shake when you open them. Or maybe it's simpler than that. Maybe it's just the electric bill, the water bill, the insurance premium that went up again for no reason you can understand. And you're sitting there with your calculator, moving numbers around like puzzle pieces that don't fit, trying to make $70 cover $200 worth of survival. I see you. God sees you. But here's what's breaking my heart right now, and I need you to really hear this. You've been feeling broke, haven't you? Not just financially broke. Spiritually broke. Emotionally broke. You've been feeling like God forgot to pay attention when your name came up for blessing. Like somehow heaven approved everyone else's miracle but put yours on hold indefinitely. You look at your children, they're struggling too. You want to help them, but you can barely help yourself. You look at your grandchildren, and you wonder what kind of legacy you're leaving them. Not the inheritance you dreamed of giving. Not the financial stability you prayed they'd see in you. Just more struggle, more stress, more of the same cycle that's been haunting your family for generations. And late at night, when the house is quiet and there's nobody to perform for, nobody to be strong for, you whisper that question that terrifies you most. God, am I going to make it? Will my money outlast my life? Will I become a burden to my children? Will I die with debt instead of a legacy? Will I spend my final years choosing between medication and meals? Those aren't just fears, beloved. Those are the third-am whispers that make you question whether God even remembers your address. But here's what I'm about to tell you, and this is going to shatter everything you thought you understood about your financial situation. Your spirit entered a new season months ago, maybe even years ago. But your mind didn't get the memo. Your soul made a shift that your bank account hasn't reflected yet. Think about it this way. You know how the old banks used to work. Back before everything went digital, you'd deposit a check on Friday afternoon, but the money wouldn't show up in your account until Monday morning. The transaction was already complete. The funds were already transferred. The approval had already happened. But the system needed time to update. You'd stand at that ATM on Saturday, checking your balance, and it would look like nothing had changed. You'd panic. Where's my money? Did they lose it? Did something go wrong? But the money was already yours. It was just waiting for the screen to catch up with reality. That's exactly where you are right now. Heaven processed your approval. The funds were released. The blessing was signed, sealed, and sent. But you're still staring at the old screen, the old balance, the old limitations, wondering why nothing's changed. Your blessing didn't disappear, chosen one. Your fear just distorted your vision. You've been looking at your circumstances through the lens of lack for so long that you can't recognize provision when it's standing right in front of you. You've been so focused on what's missing that you've missed what's manifesting. Let me take you to 2 Kings, chapter 6. Elisha and his servant are surrounded by an entire army. Horses, chariots, soldiers, an impossible situation. The servant wakes up, sees the enemy closing in, and he panics. Master, what are we going to do? But Elisha isn't worried. You know why? Because he can see what the servant can't see. So he prays a simple prayer. Lord, open his eyes so he may see. And suddenly the servant sees it. The mountain is full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. The protection was always there. The provision was already in place. He just couldn't see it until his spiritual eyes were opened. Your problem isn't that God hasn't provided. Your problem is that you haven't seen what he's already released. And in section C, stay with me now, I'm going to tell you the exact moment God released the shift over your finances. The precise moment when heaven said, enough, their season of lack is over. You need to hear this because once you know the moment, you'll understand the movement that's already begun in your life. But right now, I need you to make a decision. Are you going to keep staring at the old screen, or are you ready to see what's really in your account? Because, beloved, the update is about to hit your reality, and everything is about to change. Listen to me, chosen one. I need you to stop everything you're doing right now and hear what heaven just declared over your life. Not what your bank statement says, not what the economy predicts, not what your fears whisper at Thur-Am. I'm talking about what God Almighty just spoke from His throne. I am taking the weight off your wallet. Those aren't my words, those are His words. And if you've been carrying the crushing burden of financial worry for so long that it feels like part of your skeleton, that weight is being lifted right now. You want to know why you're still here at 70, at 80, at 90 years old. You want to know why you survived the depression, the recessions, the market crashes, the medical bills that should have bankrupted you. Because God has been funding your life from a treasury that Wall Street doesn't control, from an account that inflation cannot touch, from a supply line that never runs dry. But here's what breaks my heart. You've been so focused on what's in your wallet that you missed who's behind your provision. Let me show you something that's going to shake you to your core. Turn with me in your spirit to 2 Kings chapter 13. The prophet Elijah is running for his life. There's a famine in the land, no food, no water, no way forward. And God tells him to go hide by a brook in the middle of nowhere. Now watch this. Elijah obeys, and every single morning, ravens bring him bread and meat. Ravens, birds that eat garbage, became God's delivery system for a prophet's breakfast. You think that's coincidence? You think that's just a nice Bible story for Sunday school? No. That's God proving that when He decides to fund your life, He doesn't need your Fort and Wick to cooperate. He doesn't need Social Security to be solvent. He doesn't even need logical sources. He'll use ravens if He has to. But it gets better. That same chapter, verses 2-3, Elijah meets a widow who's down to her last meal. One handful of flour, one splash of oil. She's literally preparing to eat and die. But the prophet says, "Make me a cake first." Now that sounds crazy, doesn't it? That sounds like terrible financial advice. Give away your last when you're starving. But she did it, and you know what happened. The flour didn't run out, the oil didn't dry up, not for a day, not for a week. For years during a famine, that jar kept producing. That's not budgeting, beloved. That's not good planning. That's God multiplying what shouldn't be a nouve. And you're sitting there right now thinking, but that was biblical times. That was special people. That was miracles we don't see anymore. Stop it. Stop disqualifying yourself from the same God who fed Elijah with birds and stretched a widow's oil for years. Look at the feeding of the 5,000. A little boy had 5 loaves and 2 fish. 5 loaves, 2 fish. For 5,000 men, not counting women and children. Maybe 15,000 people total. The disciples looked at those fish and saw subtraction. They saw impossibility. They saw, this will never be enough. But Jesus saw multiplication. Where you saw subtraction, God was preparing multiplication. Read that again. Let it sink into the deepest place of your fear. Where you see your savings shrinking, God sees seed for harvest. Where you see medical bills piling up, God sees opportunities to prove His provision. Where you see the end of your resources, God sees the beginning of His supernatural supply. You've been doing the math wrong your whole life. You've been calculating with earthly arithmetic when heaven operates on divine mathematics. In God's economy, 5 plus 2 doesn't equal 7. It equals 12 baskets left over. Now I need you to understand something that's going to change how you see your golden years. You think retirement means retreat. You think getting older means getting weaker. You think your best providing days are behind you. God says you're wrong. Your faithfulness over 70 80, 90 years has built up compound interest in heaven's bank. Every tithe you gave when you couldn't afford it. Every offering you dropped in the plate when your own cupboard was bare. Every time you trusted God instead of your circumstances. That wasn't charity, beloved. That was investment. And the return is about to blow your mind. Because God doesn't just want to provide for you. He wants to use you to provide for your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. He wants to turn your legacy from, "We barely made it," to, "God always came through." He wants the next generation to look at your life and say, "If God funded Grandma's life, He'll fund mine too." You are not a burden. You are a blessing waiting to manifest. If you believe, if something in your spirit is rising up right now and saying yes, then write it in the comments. God is funding me. Don't just think it. Declare it. Let your fingers type what your faith believes. Let heaven see your agreement. But hold on, don't scroll yet. Don't click away. Because what I'm about to reveal next is the part that's going to shatter every limitation you've accepted. The part that's going to explain why your provision hasn't looked the way you expected. The biggest truth is still ahead. And when you hear it, something that's been blocking your blessing for decades is going to crack wide open. You know what the devil fears most about you right now? It's not your prayers. It's not your faith. It's not even your breakthrough that's already been signed and sealed in heaven's ledger. What terrifies him is that you might actually believe it. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. While God has been processing your provision, the enemy has been running a counterfeit operation. He's been working overtime not to block your blessing, because he can't touch what heaven has released, but to convince you it's not real, to make you doubt, to drain the last drops of hope from your weary soul before you see the manifestation. Let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How many nights have you sat alone in your living room, the TV flickering in the darkness, and felt the crushing weight of loneliness pressing down on your chest? How many times have you looked at your phone, waiting for it to ring, wondering if your own children even remember you exist? How many moments have you caught yourself thinking, what if I die alone? What if nobody notices for days? That thought didn't come from you. That was planted. The enemy knows your address. He knows which commercials make you cry. He knows that 3 a.m. is when your defenses are weakest. He knows that Sunday afternoons, when families gather and you sit alone, that's when the lies sound most like truth. You're a burden. That's his whisper. Your kids tolerate you out of obligation. That's his poison. You should have saved more, planned better, been smarter with money. That's his accusation. It's too late for you now. Your best years are gone, and God's moved on to younger, more useful vessels. Stop. Do you hear what's happening? He's attacking your mind because he cannot touch your blessing. Think about this for a moment. The devil doesn't waste ammunition on empty targets. He doesn't send his most vicious lies to people who pose no threat. But you've been under assault. The depression that sits on your chest like a stone. The anxiety that wakes you before dawn. The regret that replays your failures on an endless loop. The shame that whispers you should have done more, been more, saved more. That's not conviction from God. That's condemnation from hell. Here's what the enemy has been doing while you've been struggling. He's been trying to convince you that your account is empty, that you're running on fumes, that there's nothing left for you. But while he's been whispering bankruptcy, heaven has been making deposits. While he's been showing you your failures, God has been funding your future. While he's been replaying your past, the Almighty has been releasing your provision. The devil is a liar and the father of lies. John 10:4 says he does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. Every word he speaks is designed to kill, steal, and destroy what God has already blessed. But here's the part that's going to set you free. Your enemy has been trying to bankrupt your faith, not your finances. He knows that if he can get you to stop believing, you'll stop receiving. If he can get you to doubt God's goodness, you'll reject God's provision. If he can convince you that you're forgotten, you'll never reach out to claim what's already been assigned to you. Think about the Israelites at the edge of the promised land. Numbers flee tells us they sent 12 spies to scout the territory. 10 came back with a report of giants and fortified cities. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, they said. But Joshua and Caleb saw the same land and declared, "We should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it." Same land, same giants, same cities, but two different beliefs about what God had already promised. The 10 spies died in the wilderness. Joshua and Caleb inherited the promise. What you believe about your situation right now in this very moment is determining whether you die in the wilderness of worry or step into the land of provision. The enemy wants you focused on the giants. Medical bills that look insurmountable. Inflation that's eating your fixed income. Rent increases you can't afford. Prescriptions you're rationing because you can't pay for a full month's supply. The fear of losing your independence, your home, your dignity. But God is saying, I've already defeated those giants. The land is yours. The provision is released. Stop looking at what you lack and start looking at what I've already supplied. If this is hitting you right now, if you feel the weight of the enemy's lies being exposed, I need you to do something. Breathe deeply, right where you are. Put your hand on your chest and feel your heart beating. That's proof you're still in the game. That's evidence God's not done with you yet. Now whisper these words, I am still funded. Say it again, I am still funded. One more time and mean it, I am still funded. Because, chosen one, the battle for your provision isn't happening in your bank account. It's happening in your belief system. And the moment you choose to believe what heaven says instead of what hell whispers, everything shifts. But here's the question that's going to determine your next chapter. If God has already released your provision, why haven't you seen it yet? What's blocking the manifestation of what's already been approved? The exact moment God released the financial shift. What I'm about to tell you is so sacred, so profound that I need you to stop everything right now. Put down your phone. Turn off the TV. Close the door. Because this part is holy ground. And you're about to walk barefoot into a truth that will change everything you thought you knew about your financial struggle. Here it is. The moment heaven released the financial shift over your life wasn't when you finally got the promotion. It wasn't when your children started helping. It wasn't even when you cried out in desperation last Tuesday night at 2 a.m. The shift started the exact moment you survived what was meant to break you. Let that sink in. The exact moment you should have collapsed but didn't, that's when heaven opened your account. When the diagnosis should have destroyed you but you woke up the next morning anyway. When the funeral should have buried your will to live but you chose to breathe one more day. When the bank statement should have sent you over the edge but you whispered, God, I still trust you, through tears you didn't think you had left. That moment, that's when the transaction began. You see, dear chosen one, you've been living under a devastating lie. The enemy convinced you that your survival was barely enough. That getting through another day with your sanity intact was the ceiling of what you could expect. That making it to 70, 75, 80 years old with nothing but social security and a worn-out body meant you'd somehow failed God's plan. But what if I told you that every single storm you survived was actually a deposit into a spiritual account you didn't even know existed? Think about this. Job lost everything: his children, his wealth, his health, his reputation. The Bible says in Job 2:10 his own wife told him, curse God and die. She gave up. She checked out. She saw the circumstances and declared it was over. But Job said something that should make your spine tingle right now. Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. And what happened? Job 4:2-10 tells us, "The Lord restored his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before." Twice as much. Not the same amount, not a little bit more, twice. Because survival under impossible circumstances doesn't just earn you sympathy from heaven, it earns you multiplication. Every night you survived when loneliness screamed so loud you thought you'd lose your mind, heaven recorded it. Every month you survived choosing between heating and eating, God saw it. Every doctor's appointment you survived when the news was bad, but you refused to curse him, angels carried that report straight to the throne. Do you understand what I'm telling you? While you were simply trying to make it through, thinking nobody noticed, thinking your pain didn't matter, thinking your struggle was just the unfortunate reality of getting old in America, heaven was taking notes, recording, documenting, building a case file of your faithfulness that would one day be presented before the Ancient of Days. Hebrews 6:10 declares, God is not unjust. He will not forget your work and the love you have shown him. Might not forget. Will not forget. It's impossible for God to overlook what you've been carrying. But here's where the mystery deepens and your heart needs to pay attention. You thought survival was the end goal. You thought just making it through was enough. But God doesn't reward you for merely surviving. He rewards you for surviving with your faith intact. There's a massive difference between enduring and enduring with trust. Between getting through and getting through while still whispering his name. The widow in Mott Kingston was down to her last meal. One handful of flour. One drop of oil. She was preparing to feed her son one final time and then die. But when the prophet Elijah asked her to feed him first, to give from her lack, to trust in her desperation, she did it. And you know what happened. Verse this says, the jar of flour was not used up and the jug of oil did not run dry. Not for a day. Not for a week. Through the entire famine, it kept flowing. That's what happens when you survive with surrender instead of bitterness. Every time you could have cursed God but blessed him instead, that added credit. Every time you could have walked away but stayed faithful, that multiplied your account. Every Sunday you dragged yourself to church when your body screamed to stay home. Heaven was compounding interest on your devotion. You didn't know it, but spiritual accountants have been working overtime on your behalf. Recording every tear as liquid investment. Documenting every prayer as legal tender in the courts of heaven. Filing every act of faith as evidence that you qualified for release. And here's what's about to wreck you with hope. God doesn't operate on earthly timelines. He doesn't cash out accounts when it's convenient for our understanding. He releases resources when the soil of your spirit is finally ready to steward the harvest without it destroying you. You're ready now. After all these years, after all these trials, after all these moments of choosing him over comfort, you're finally ready. But what does this actually mean for your bank account? What does this look like in your mailbox, in your finances, in your daily reality? That's exactly what I need to show you next. Because understanding that heaven has released the shift is one thing, but recognizing how it's coming, how it's already moving toward you right now, that's what will determine whether you receive it or miss it completely. Listen to me, chosen one. Right now, this very second, something is shifting in the heavens over your financial life. Can you feel it? That flutter in your chest, that unexplainable stirring that just broke through 70 years of worry. You've been standing at the edge of a dam for decades. Behind that concrete wall, a river has been building. Your grandmother's prayers from 1952, your mother's tears in 1918, your own desperate cries last Tuesday at 2 to 4 a.m. when you couldn't sleep because the property tax bill came and you didn't know how you'd pay it. Every prayer, every sacrifice, every time you tithed when it made no logical sense, every moment you chose faith over panic. It's all been accumulating behind that dam like pressure building in the deep places of the earth. And today, right now, God is cracking it open. You want to know what's about to flood your life. Not just money, beloved. Money is too small a word for what heaven is releasing. I'm talking about divine flow, supernatural current. The kind of provision that makes your bank statement look like a typo and your mailbox look like a miracle delivery system. Here's what's coming at you like a rushing river. Unexpected provision from sources you never applied to. You're going to get checks in the mail and you won't remember why. Refunds you didn't know you were owed. Settlements from class action lawsuits you forgot you joined. Money appearing in your account with explanations that make you say, "Wait, what?" Help from strangers who feel compelled to bless you. That neighbor you barely know is going to knock on your door with groceries. That person at church you've never spoken to is going to hand you an envelope and walk away before you can say thank you. Why? Because God is orchestrating divine appointments between your need and someone else's obedience. Debts dissolving like sugar in hot water. That medical bill you've been making $5 payments on for 3 years. Watch what happens. That credit card balance that's haunted you since your spouse passed. Heaven's about to intervene. Not because you suddenly got smarter with money, but because God looked at your account and said, "Enough. This one has suffered long enough." New opportunities presenting themselves without you chasing them. Job offers for positions you never applied for. Business ideas dropping into your spirit at 3 a.m. that actually make sense. Investments you thought were dead suddenly coming back to life. Inheritance you didn't know existed. Property values shifting in your favor. But here's the part that's going to wreck you, and this is where you need to really listen. The greatest thing God is releasing isn't money at all. It's financial peace. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? That knot in your stomach that's been there so long you thought it was just part of getting older. That anxiety that wakes you up before dawn. That fear that follows you to the grocery store, making you put items back because you're not sure. That shame that makes you avoid your children's calls because you don't want them to know you're struggling. God is not giving you money, He is giving you peace about money. Philippians 4:19 declares, "My God shall supply all your need according to His riches in glory," not according to your social security check, not according to your pension, not according to the economy or inflation or Wall Street, according to His riches. And beloved, His vault has never experienced a recession. But I need you to understand something that's going to sound controversial. The flow has already started. It's already moving. The dam already cracked. The river is already rushing toward your life. The only question is, are you positioned to receive it? See, most people stand at the riverbank with a thimble, praying for God to fill the ocean. They're asking for provision while living in a mindset of scarcity. They're quoting scriptures about abundance while speaking poverty over their lives every single day. I can't afford it. I'm broke. I'll never have enough. Stop poisoning your own breakthrough. The river doesn't flow to people who beg for drops. It floods the lives of those who open their arms and say, "God, I receive everything you're sending. I trust your timing. I believe your word over my bank statement. I'm stepping into the flow." This is your cinematic moment, chosen one. This is the scene where the music swells and the breakthrough breaks through. This is where 70 years of worry meets heaven's now. This is where your story shifts from barely surviving to abundantly thriving. You've been cast in a role you didn't audition for, the role of financial struggle. But God is about to rewrite your script. He's about to change your genre from tragedy to triumph, from drama to deliverance, from anxiety to abundance. The river is here. The flow has begun. The funding is released. If you feel this rising in your spirit like a flood you can't control, if something in you is breaking free from decades of fear, declare it right now in the comments. I enter the flow. Say it like you mean it. Say it like you're tired of living small. Say it like you finally believe what God said about you is bigger than what your circumstances have been screaming at you. Because what's about to happen next will prove that when God says, "It's time," every force of hell and every financial setback has to bow. But you need to know why this is happening now, and why it's happening to you. You want to know why your prayers seem to echo in empty rooms for so long. You want to know why heaven appeared silent while your bank account screamed. Let me tell you something that's going to shake you to your core. Some blessings God releases without telling you, so the enemy can't intercept them. Think about that for a moment. Really let it sink in. While you've been on your knees begging God to do something, He's already done it. While you've been checking your mailbox with trembling hands, heaven has been processing what I call a silent wire transfer. You see, when banks move large amounts of money, they don't announce it on loudspeakers. They don't send telegrams. They work in encrypted silence because they know the moment word gets out, thieves start planning. Heaven operates the same way. God doesn't broadcast His blessings when the enemy is listening. He moves in sacred silence. But here's what breaks my heart. While God has been working behind the scenes, you've been sitting in that chair convincing yourself He forgot about you. You've been lying awake at 2 a.m. doing that math again, the terrible math that every senior in America knows by heart. Social Security minus rent, minus utilities, minus groceries, minus the prescriptions that keep you alive, and what's left, barely enough to breathe. I'm talking to the 73-year-old woman in Michigan who hasn't turned on her heat because the gas bill terrifies her more than the cold. I'm talking to the 80-year-old man in Florida who's eating 1 meal a day so his medications don't run out. I'm talking to every grandmother who lies to her children about how she's doing because she can't bear to be a burden. The fear of losing security. The anxiety that keeps you awake wondering what happens when the next medical emergency hits. The crushing loneliness of living in a house that used to be full of voices and laughter, now echoing with nothing but your own footsteps and the hum of the refrigerator. God saw it all, every sleepless night, every skipped meal, every time you've chosen between dignity and survival. And while you were carrying that weight, heaven was moving resources you couldn't see yet. Listen to what Elisha told the widow in 2 Kings chapter 4. Her husband was dead. Her sons were about to be sold into slavery to pay her debts. She came to the prophet with nothing but desperation and a jar of oil. And Elisha said something that should stop you in your tracks. Go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for just a few. Empty jars, not full ones. Empty ones. Why? Because God doesn't fill what's already full. He fills what looks empty. He funds what appears bankrupt. He provides where provision seems impossible. That widow poured oil from her 1 jar into every empty vessel her sons brought her. And the oil didn't stop flowing until there were no more jars left. The Bible says in verse 6, when all the jars were full, she said to her son, "Bring me another one." But he replied, "There is not a jar left." Then the oil stopped flowing. Do you see what happened? The miracle wasn't limited by God's supply. It was limited by her capacity to receive. Chosen one, what if your lack of provision isn't because heaven is empty, but because you've stopped bringing empty jars? What if you've been so focused on what you don't have that you've missed what God has already released? Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to discover. While you've been in survival mode, barely getting by, convincing yourself this is just how it is for people your age, God has been staging a financial ambush. Not someday, not in heaven, right now, in the realm you can't see yet. Because there's a principle in the kingdom that most preachers won't tell you. Your faith didn't just survive the valley, your faith activated a second wave. Every time you tithed when it made no sense. Every time you gave to someone else when you barely had enough for yourself. Every time you praised God in the middle of your poverty instead of cursing Him, you were making deposits into an account you didn't know existed. Malachi 3 verse 10, "Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it." Test me in this. The only place in Scripture where God says, "Test me," and what does He promise? Not a trickle, not just enough floodgates. So much blessing you won't have room to contain it. But here's the mystery that's been hidden from you. The floodgates don't always open the way you expect. Sometimes the blessing comes disguised. Sometimes it arrives through channels you weren't watching. Sometimes God sends provision through people you've never met, opportunities you never applied for, ideas that wake you up at 3 a.m. The silent wire transfer is in motion. But you have to know where to look. In the next section, I'm going to tell you the exact moment heaven marked your name for the next deposit. I'm going to show you the 3 signs that prove your transfer has already been authorized. And I'm going to reveal why the delay you've been experiencing isn't denial, it's strategic positioning. But before we go there, I need you to answer one question that will determine everything. Are you ready to stop living like you're forgotten and start living like you're funded? Now listen to me carefully, chosen one, because what I'm about to tell you is going to explain every confusing thing that's happened to you in the last 72 hours. You heard the word, you felt the stirring, you sensed something shifting in the heavens over your financial situation. For the first time in years, maybe decades, hope flickered in your chest like a candle that refused to go out. You went to bed with peace and woke up with panic. What happened? Why did the anxiety come back stronger? Why did you wake up at 4 a.m. with your heart racing, replaying every mistake you've ever made with money? Why did that old shame resurface, the bankruptcy from 2020, the loan you couldn't pay back, the business that failed? Why, the moment you started believing God was going to provide, did everything inside you start screaming that you're a fool for hoping? Let me tell you something that's going to set you free. The battle hit you after the blessing to make you doubt the blessing. You think that attack was random. You think that wave of fear, that sudden flood of regret, that voice whispering. Who do you think you are? God's not coming through for you. You think that just happened to show up the same day you said, "I receive." No, beloved, that was strategic, that was calculated. That was hell recognizing that heaven just activated something over your life. And the enemy threw everything he had at you to make you abort the miracle before it fully manifests. The attack is confirmation. The attack is confirmation. The attack is confirmation. Think about the children of Israel at the Red Sea. Exodus 10:4 tells us they'd just been freed from 400 years of slavery. God had sent plagues. He'd broken Pharaoh's grip. He'd led them out with signs and wonders. They were walking in their breakthrough. But then what happened? Pharaoh changed his mind and came after them with 600 chariots, the best warriors Egypt had, thundering across the desert to drag them back into bondage. And the people, Exodus 9:4-1-2 records their cry, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, 'Leave us alone. Let us serve the Egyptians'?" Do you hear that? They'd already seen the miracles. They'd already walked through the door of deliverance. But the moment the enemy showed up behind them, they forgot everything God had done and wanted to go back to slavery. Sound familiar? Maybe you woke up yesterday morning and thought, maybe I should just accept that this is my life. Maybe I'm not supposed to have financial peace. Maybe I should stop believing for more and just survive on what I have. That's not wisdom talking, dear one. That's Pharaoh's chariots making you forget the Red Sea is about to part. Let me tell you what's really happening in your life right now. Blessings are like seeds planted at night. Storms hit before sprouts rise. The moment that seed of divine provision was planted in your spirit, the enemy sent the storm. Not to destroy the seed, but to trick you into digging it up before it breaks through the soil. You see, the devil knows something you're just beginning to understand. He knows that if you hold on for just a little longer, if you refuse to let go of what God spoke, if you keep standing even when your knees are shaking, something is about to emerge from your life that he cannot stop, cannot steal, cannot destroy. This is why the anxiety feels worse now than it did before you heard the word. This is why old memories are resurfacing with vengeance. This is why you're suddenly remembering every financial failure, every time you trusted and got hurt, every moment you believed and got disappointed. The enemy is weaponizing your past to abort your future. But here's what he doesn't want you to know. The intensity of the attack is proportional to the magnitude of the breakthrough. You don't get ambushed on the way to nothing. You don't get spiritually assaulted over pocket change. Hell doesn't mobilize its forces to stop a blessing that won't matter. The fury of the attack you're experiencing right now is proof, undeniable proof, that what's coming is bigger than anything you've seen before. Job understood this. Job mot 20 record Satan himself admitting, "Have you not put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has?" The enemy recognized Job's protection, Job's blessing, Job's favor. And what did Satan do? He asked permission to attack. Why? Because he knew that if Job's faith survived the fire, his testimony would destroy the enemy's kingdom for generations. Your attack isn't random, beloved. It's recognition. The whispers you're hearing, "You're too old for this. You've missed too many opportunities. God helps people who help themselves and you haven't done enough." Those aren't your thoughts. Those are demonic assignments designed to make you forfeit what's already been released from heaven's treasury. But I need you to understand something that's going to anchor your soul in this storm. Every single patriarch, every prophet, every chosen vessel in Scripture faced their fiercest battle right before their greatest victory. Moses at the Red Sea, David before Goliath, Esther before she approached the king, Jesus in Gethsemane. The valley always comes before the victory. But the valley is not your destination, it's your passage. And right now, as you sit in that valley of confusion, of doubt, of financial fear that wakes you up in cold sweats, heaven is preparing a move your enemy cannot survive. Because what God is about to do in your bank account, in your circumstances, in your daily provision, it's not just for you. It's a demonstration to every demon that tried to convince you God had forgotten your address. So the question burning in your spirit right now is this: will you let the attack convince you the blessing isn't real? Or will you recognize that the attack is proof the blessing is already in motion? But listen to me carefully, chosen one. What I just told you about God funding your life right now, that's only the first level. That's just the foundation. Because God doesn't operate like your bank manager who approves you for the bare minimum and calls it a blessing. No, beloved, God is not just funding your needs, He's funding your future. Let me paint you a picture that's happening in the spiritual realm right this very second. Can you see it? The vault of heaven, massive, ancient, carved from eternal light. Its doors are swinging open, not cracking open, not slightly ajar, swinging wide with the force of divine intention. Inside there are scrolls stacked higher than the eye can see, each one bearing a name written in gold ink that never fades. Right now an angel is pulling your scroll. Your name is glowing, pulsing, radiating light because heaven has marked it for immediate action. And across that scroll, in crimson letters that burn with the authority of the Almighty Himself, God is stamping one word: approved. Not pending, not under review, not will get back to you, approved. But here's what's going to shake you to your core. This isn't a one-time deposit. This isn't God throwing you a lifeline just so you can barely keep your head above water for another month. What's being released over your life right now is what I call the overflow account. You see, when God funds your overflow, something supernatural happens. It doesn't stop with you. It can't stop with you. Overflow by its very nature spills over the edges. It floods past the boundaries. It rushes into your children, crashes into your grandchildren. And every generation that comes after you will drink from the river that's being released today. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Your great-great-grandchildren, children who haven't even been conceived yet, they're going to benefit from what God is doing in your life right now. They're going to stand on the foundation you're laying. They're going to inherit the overflow you're receiving. Malachi 3:10 says it plainly, "Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it." Did you catch that? Not just blessing. Not enough blessing. So much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it. That's overflow, beloved. That's what happens when heaven opens the floodgates. But I need to ask you something that's going to cut deep. How many years have you lived in survival mode? How many decades have you trained yourself to expect just enough? How many times have you prayed for provision and secretly hoped for scraps instead of believing for abundance? The enemy has conditioned you to think small. He's convinced you that asking God for overflow is greedy, that wanting more than bare minimum is somehow ungodly. But that's a lie straight from the pit of hell. God doesn't want you scraping by. He doesn't want you rationing your joy, budgeting your faith, or living with a scarcity mindset while calling it humility. Ephesians 3:20 declares that He is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to His power that is at work within us. Immeasurably more, not slightly more, not a little extra, immeasurably more. So why have you been living like a beggar when you're the child of the King? Why have you been accepting pennies when heaven is releasing pounds? Why have you been grateful for drops when God is opening rivers? Because you didn't know about the overflow account. But now you do. And if you're finally ready to stop living beneath your spiritual inheritance, if you're claiming not just provision but generational overflow that covers your children, your grandchildren, and every seed that comes from your bloodline, then type it right now. My house is covered. Say it out loud where you're sitting. Declare it over your finances. Speak it over your family tree. Because when you make that declaration, you're not just hoping, you're prophesying. You're calling things that are not as though they were. You're agreeing with what heaven has already decreed. And here's the minor climax that's going to launch you into the next revelation. You are not receiving pockets of blessing. You are not getting occasional bonuses from a stingy God. You are receiving streams. Streams, beloved. Multiple streams. Rivers flowing from the throne room directly into your life. Psalm 1:3 talks about the person who meditates on God's law. They are like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season and whose leaf does not wither. Not streams plural, multiple sources, continuous flow. One stream covers your medical bills. Another stream handles your housing. A third stream provides for your grandchildren's education. A fourth stream funds the ministry you've been called to. A fifth stream creates the legacy you'll leave behind. You've been praying for a miracle. God is releasing an ecosystem. But now I need you to brace yourself, because what I'm about to show you next is going to explain why. Some people receive these streams immediately, while others wait for years, wondering why heaven seems silent. Some of you have been whispering a question into the darkness. A question you've been too afraid to say out loud, even to yourself. You've been asking, God, why did you go quiet after you blessed me? You remember that moment, don't you? that breakthrough, that answer to prayer, that provision that showed up exactly when you needed it. You felt God so close you could almost hear his heartbeat. The presence was so real, so thick, so undeniable that you absolutely knew he was with you. But then, silence. The bills kept coming. The loneliness crept back in. The phone stopped ringing. And you started wondering if you imagined the whole thing. If maybe God moved on to someone more important, someone younger, someone who still has their whole life ahead of them. Let me tell you something that's going to shatter the lie you've been believing. That silence wasn't abandonment. That quiet wasn't rejection. That stillness wasn't God forgetting your name. He went quiet because he wanted you to hear your own faith, not your fear. Think about this. When you deposit a check at the bank, what happens after it clears? Does the bank call you every morning to remind you the money's still there? Does the manager knock on your door at midnight to confirm your balance? No. The bank goes silent, but the funds remain. The account is full. The provision is secure. God's silence doesn't mean his provision stopped. It means it's already been deposited. But here's what breaks my heart. I know exactly what that silence feels like at 75 years old, at 82, at 90. It's different than when you were young, isn't it? Back then silence just meant life was busy. But now silence sounds like abandonment. It feels like the world moved on without you. You sit in that chair by the window, watching the street, and nobody walks up your steps anymore. The phone that used to ring constantly sits silent on the table. Your children are busy, too busy. Your grandchildren are glued to screens you don't understand. Even the church you served faithfully for 40 years seems to have forgotten you exist. And in that silence, the enemy whispers his poison. See, even God has moved on. You're too old, too forgotten, too late. But what if I told you that every single night you've sat alone, God has been sitting with you? What if I told you that every time you felt forgotten, heaven was taking notes on your faithfulness? What if the silence you've been interpreting as absence was actually God holding his breath, watching to see if you would trust him without the noise? Job understood this. For 37 chapters, Job cried out. He questioned, he demanded answers, and God was silent. Completely, utterly silent. Job's friends talked, his wife talked, the enemy talked, but God, not a word. Until chapter 3. And when God finally spoke, he didn't apologize for the silence. He didn't explain the suffering. He simply said, "Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation?" Translation: I've been working behind the scenes in ways your human mind cannot comprehend. The silence was never evidence of God's absence. It was evidence of his preparation. But here's what you need to understand about this divine pause, and it's going to require you to shift everything you thought you knew about how God operates. When heaven goes quiet after blessing you, it's not testing whether you're grateful, it's testing whether you're ready for increase. Because God won't give you more until he knows you can handle the silence between the seed and the harvest. Abraham waited 25 years between the promise and Isaac. 25 years of silence so loud it must have felt like screaming. But Genesis 21:1 says, "Now the Lord was gracious to Sarah as he had said, past tense." The promise was already spoken. The blessing was already released. The silence didn't cancel it. The silence was part of the process. You've been living in that gap, haven't you? Between the word God spoke and the manifestation you can see. Between the promise you heard and the provision you're holding. Between the faith in your heart and the evidence in your bank account. And in that gap, you've been drowning in questions. Did I hear wrong? Did I miss it? Am I being punished? Did my faith fail? No, beloved, your faith didn't fail. Your faith is being refined. Malachi 3:3 says God will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. Do you know what that means? It means he's been sitting with you through this entire silence. watching, waiting, refining. Because a refiner never leaves the silver unattended in the fire. Never. He sits inches away, staring into the flames, watching his own reflection appear in the metal as the impurities burn away. God has been that close the entire time. And that silence you've been fearing, it was the sign he was preparing something bigger than you asked for. Something more profound than you imagined. Something so valuable it required this exact season of quiet trust. But the question that will determine whether you step into what's next is this: can you trust God in the silence the same way you praised Him in the sound? Because what He's about to reveal in your life next will require the kind of faith that doesn't need constant confirmation, the kind of trust that doesn't demand daily proof, the kind of belief that knows the funds are there even when the phone isn't ringing. And what happens when that kind of faith collides with God's perfect timing? That's when miracles stop being stories and start being your testimony. Beloved, I need you to stop everything right now. Close your eyes for just a moment. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't coming from me, it's being transmitted through me. And if you can feel the atmosphere shifting around you as I speak these words, that's not your imagination. That's confirmation. Heaven spoke your name again. Not in passing. Not as a footnote in some cosmic ledger. Your name was called out loud in the Council of Light, the place where decisions about divine intervention are made, the place where angels stand at attention, the place where the Father himself reviews the accounts of his children and declares what must be released into the earthly realm. And 3 days ago, chosen one, your file was opened. Picture this with me. In that sacred chamber, beyond the veil of what human eyes can see, there is a scroll. It's ancient, yet somehow brand new. It's been rolled tight for years, maybe decades, but now, in this very season of your life, it's being unfurled. And written across that scroll in handwriting that burns like fire is your name. Not the name people call you. Not the name on your driver's license or your social security card. Your real name. The name God whispered over you before your mother even knew she was carrying you. Jeremiah Monfeifem says, "Before I formed you in the womb I knew you, not observed you from a distance, not catalogued you in some database, knew you intimately, personally, completely." And as that scroll opened, something happened that I need you to understand with every fiber of your being. Golden light, pure, unfiltered, overwhelming golden light began to pour from the parchment. Light so brilliant that even angels had to shield their eyes. Light so heavy with glory that the atmosphere in heaven shifted. And in that light, dear one, your entire life was displayed. Not just the victories, not just the Sundays you showed up at church or the times you remembered to pray before meals. No, everything. Your tears were counted, every single one. That night in 1970 when you cried yourself to sleep because the mortgage was due and you didn't know where the money would come from, counted. That morning in 2020 when you opened the eviction notice with shaking hands, counted. That moment 3 months ago when you sat in your car in the pharmacy parking lot, staring at the prescription you couldn't afford to fill, counted. Psalm 60 team declares, "You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book." But it wasn't just tears, beloved. Your sacrifices were reviewed. That time you gave your last $20 to help someone else even though your own cupboard was bare, reviewed. Those years you worked 2 jobs, sacrificing sleep and health and time with your family just to keep the lights on, reviewed. Every meal you skipped so your grandchildren could eat, reviewed. Every dream you buried so others could live theirs, reviewed. And your loneliness was seen. Oh, chosen one, your loneliness was seen. Those nights when you wondered if anyone remembered you were still alive. Those birthdays when the phone didn't ring. Those holidays when you sat alone at a table meant for family. Those moments when you whispered into the darkness, "God, do you even know I'm here?" He saw it all. He recorded it all. He has been keeping meticulous records of every moment when the world forgot you, but heaven did not. And as the scroll continued to unfurl, revealing year after year of your faithfulness in obscurity, your obedience in hardship, your worship in the wilderness, something shifted in the throne room. The Father leaned forward. The angels grew silent. And a voice that sounds like many waters, a voice that spoke galaxies into existence, a voice that calmed storms and raised the dead, that voice spoke 4 words that changed everything. Release another measure. Do you understand what just happened? In the courts of heaven, based on the evidence of your life, based on the tears you've sown, based on the faithfulness you've demonstrated when no one was watching, God Himself issued a divine decree. Not a suggestion, not a possibility, a decree, an irreversible command from the throne of the Almighty. Release another measure of provision, another measure of supernatural supply, another measure of financial breakthrough that doesn't depend on the stock market, doesn't wait for social security increases, doesn't need approval from any bank or government agency. Matthew 6:30 promises, "Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." Added, not subtracted. Not withheld until you're more worthy. Added, poured in, released. But here's what I need you to grasp with everything in you. This isn't about you finally earning enough brownie points with God. This isn't about you being perfect enough, or praying hard enough, or giving enough. This is about a Father who has been watching His child struggle, watching His chosen one carry burdens they were never meant to bear, watching His beloved warrior fight battles with empty pockets and worn-out shoes. And heaven just said enough. The season of barely making it is over. The time of choosing between medicine and meals is finished. The cycle of robbing Peter to pay Paul ends now. If your heart is pounding right now, if something deep in your spirit is trembling with recognition, I need you to do something. Don't think about it. Don't analyze it, just respond. Say it softly right where you are, "Lord, I receive what heaven approved." Say it. Let those words leave your lips. Because when you agree with what heaven has already decreed, you activate the release. But what happens when heaven releases and earth doesn't know how to receive? What happens when the funds are flowing, but you're looking in the wrong direction? That's exactly what we need to unlock next. Because there's a reason you haven't seen it yet, and it's not what you think. Beloved chosen one, as we come to the end of this sacred encounter, I need you to hold on to 3 eternal truths that will anchor your soul in the days ahead. First, God is not waiting for you to be perfect before He funds your life. He's funding you because He's perfect. Your worthiness was never the question. His faithfulness has always been the answer. Second, the financial breakthrough you've been praying for isn't delayed, it's already in motion. Heaven has released the measure. Your job isn't to create provision. Your job is to recognize it, receive it, and walk in it with confidence. Third, worry is not your responsibility anymore. From this moment forward, God Himself has taken over your accounts. You are no longer managing your survival, you are stewarding heaven's supply. But hear me clearly, you are not walking this path alone. Right now, as you listen to these words, the God who parted the Red Sea is parting ways for your provision. The God who fed 5,000 with 5 loaves is multiplying what's in your hands. And beyond that, you have a community here, thousands of brothers and sisters who understand your struggle, who believe in your breakthrough, and who are ready to stand with you in prayer. So let me ask you this final question. If God has already approved the funding, if heaven has already released the measure, if your name has already been called in the council of light, will you finally stop worrying and start walking in the abundance He's prepared for you? Before I release you, join me in this prayer. Wherever you are, place your hand on your heart and receive these words. Heavenly Father, I stand before your throne on behalf of every precious soul hearing this message. Lord, you see the bills on their kitchen table. You know the balance in their bank accounts. You feel the anxiety that wakes them at 3 a.m. But you also know the provision you've already released. Father, I pray for supernatural doors to open, for checks to arrive that they didn't expect, for debt to be cancelled that seemed permanent, for opportunities to present themselves that only you could orchestrate. Give them peace that surpasses understanding. Give them faith to receive what you've already given. Give them courage to stop worrying and start worshipping. Bless their health, their families, their homes. Protect them from lack, from fear, from doubt. And let them feel your presence right now, so close, so real, so undeniable that they know beyond all questioning, you are funding their lives. And worry has no place in a child of the King. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. Now I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share what God spoke to your heart today. Ask for prayer if you need it. Encourage someone else who's fighting the same battle. And please share this message with someone who needs to hear that God is funding their life right now. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. You're not just joining a channel, you're joining a family that believes God still performs financial miracles. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Your presence here matters more than you know. Until we meet again, walk in your provision, rest in His promise, and remember heaven has already approved your funding. God bless you mightily, chosen one. Your worry ends here. Your abundance begins now.